This is a good question I got here. If you switched Garth Brooks with Kenny Rogers, who would have hit bigger? That's a good question. I gotta ask that question. I'm gonna say Kenny Rogers in a blowout because Garth Brooks was wildly successful. He was the biggest selling artist of the '90s. Country pop, huge. And actually, he was like a rock star. He covered Billy Joel. He had pop. Obviously, when he did Chris Gaines, he definitely wanted to lure it. He actually could have studied out. People forget Kenny Rogers was a really good bass player, and he was a musician in the band. A lot of people forget about Kenny Rogers' big origins. But asking me this question, Kenny Rogers tapped into all the categories. I mean, he worked with Lionel Richie, and Lady was a huge hit on pop, R&B, and country and adult contemporary. Islands in the Stream. He had stuff that connected with all audiences. Garth Brooks didn't do that. Garth Brooks sold on Walmart, Middle America. I think if Garth Brooks came out in the 70s and the 80s with what he was doing, he may have had a few hits, but I don't know if he would have been any bigger than Jerry Reed or somebody that had some hits, but I don't know if the crossover would have been as big. I don't think it really would have necessarily garnered. Would he have been any bigger than Randy Travis or Dwight Yoakam? I know, and I think about there were country artists that were big with some pop hits, had some hits. Obviously, the Oak Ridge Boys were big. Charlie Daniels. There was some. Willie Nelson had some hits. T.G. Shepherd. Would he been as T.G. Shepherd? He'd have had a run. Would he have been as big as he was? I don't know. I don't know if the audience would have done that. But Kenny Rogers had duets, connected with folks. He was on We Are the World, for crying out loud. I mean, he had a voice on so many big songs and big impact. It would have been kind of hard. I think Kenny Rogers would have been big. I think he would have been just as big. I don't know if Garth Brooks would have been as big if you flipped them from one era to the other. Because Kenny Rogers' voice loaned itself that it connected in an incredible way. I think this is a great question because you're talking about a genre of music that has been segregated on purpose, the way they operate. And yet, when we look at the dominance in totality, you see that it was within a decade that Garth Brooks, because he came out in the late 80s. He started his run 89, and then 93, No Fences. All those records were big, the mid 90s. So Kenny Rogers hit the late 70s and was big through the early 80s. So it's not that far away, but it shows you the commercialization of it, of how they did it. Kenny was one of those guys that infiltrated that. In a way, Kenny Rogers was almost like a George Benson of country in a way because he could drop the country songs, the pop, and hit the adult contemporary and get love on R&B. Garth Brooks, I don't think had that quite reach like that. So if we were to switch them around, do a switcheroo, I think Kenny Rogers would have thrived big time with what the commercialization, because country pop was bigger. I mean, so when a cat like Billy Ray Cyrus hits, I look at some of the acts that hit. Obviously, the Dixie, the former, just the Chicks, they were big. Shania Twain. That's an extension of what Kenny Rogers had done 14, 15 years earlier. So I definitely know he would have been bigger. I don't know if Garth Brooks would have hit the same way. Because I don't think he had the songs that hit like Kenny Rogers did. But he came out in an era where he was rewarded because. But you tell me what you think. If we play switcheroo with eras of Garth Brooks and Kenny Rogers, who hits bigger? Prime in the different eras. Who you think? I'm taking Kenny Rogers. Rest in peace too. Please like, subscribe, welcome thoughts, comments, and I do respond. Thank you. Wash your hands. Keep your mind clear. Watch out for another and share it if you like. Hit that membership because when you do, requests like this come true. Stay safe, stay blessed, stay woke, stay free. I'm a one-time peace.